Let's discuss loops, so a tool that allows us to repeat the code as many times as necessary. This is a third video in the second part of the Java course, so if this is the first video that you are seeing, then please head on to the playlist linked in the description so that you can start from the beginning. But if you are where you are supposed to be, then let's begin. So, loops. Without them, if we wanted to actually do something in a repetition, we would need to write out the code all the time. So for example, using the methods that I had last time, if I wanted to sum two numbers 20 times, then I would need to write down sum two numbers 20 times, which is pretty inconvenient, I would say. But I can actually make it happen in a much easier way by using loops. And there are two main types of loops. First of them is a for loop. Second of them is a while-do-while loop. So let's discuss for loop. For loop is a loop that will actually work for a certain amount of times, meaning that we set up a condition that will mean that a loop is only going to be executing the code within the loop body certain amount of times. So what is the syntax? How to create a for loop? First of all, we write down the keyword for, and then in the parentheses, we create a variable that will hold our counter of executions of the loop. We can think about it. We will then write down the condition upon which the loop should end. And then we write down what will happen after after each iteration of the loop. So each time the loop is executed, I will be increased by 1. The I starts at 0, and the loop is going to go on until I has a value of 10. So let's print out the value of the I to show you actually what is going on. So yeah, we are printing out all the values of I from 0 to 9. So a very good system. This is very, very useful for cases where we have, for example, a set amount of times we want to iterate over something. For example, if we have a string of a certain length, let's say John, and we want to iterate over the string and do some operation on the characters within the string, we can use this value as our condition for the loop to end. So for example, name.length. So this loop will run as many times as long is the name. So in this case, we'll run 4 times because John has 4 characters in it. So for example, we could go ahead and print out all the characters from the name. For example, if we were to use char at I, it starts at 0, it is going on until name.length, as you can see, 0, 1, 2, 3. So we can use it to actually get information from the initial string. And we print out nicely all the strings. So yeah, with that being said, let's check out what can we actually do with for loop. So with a for loop, we can create a new class, and let's say it's going to be name checker. A lot of checkers I know for names, but this is the best way to showcase stuff. So we'll write down a method that will be boolean, that will actually check if name contains y, and we will get string name into it. And how we want it to behave is that for int I equals 0, so we are starting at 0, e lesser than name.length, so execute as many times as there are characters in the name. And then what we will do is use a condition. So if name that char at I that, or rather equals y, we want to return true, and if not, we want to return false. So what exactly is happening is that we are going through the entirety of the length of our name, and if any of those characters is y, then we'll return true. If not, we'll return false. So let's see how this is going to perform. Let's create an object out of our name checker. And then let's call the method check if name contains y. And we're going to use, for example, John. And print out the value. Let's see how it performs. And yeah, John doesn't have it. But maybe why it does. And yeah, why it does have a y. So yeah, very important for loops. They are made to, first of all, execute a certain amount of times. They are controlled by a numerical variable, where we need to specify, first of all, the variable, then the condition, and then what should be the behavior of the specific variable and how it should change each iteration. With that being said, let's move on to the while and do-while loops. So for is actually based on a numerical variable, but while and do-while loops are actually based on a Boolean. So how to create a while loop? We write down the keyword while, in parentheses we put in the Boolean condition, in this example true, and let's say that we want to just print it out true. So if I write something down like that, spoiler alert, this will work indefinitely. So yeah, you can see it has printed out quite a lot. And actually, that is a very big trap in programming. So if you have a loop that is based on a while true statement, then there is a high probability that you will break something, because unfortunately your computer can just eat up all the resources that there are, or just be stuck in a loop. So yeah, over here we can put anything that is Boolean, right? Same with our if conditions and what we do there. So we just need to put anything that is a condition. For example, we could go ahead and create a Boolean condition that is going to be true in the beginning. And let's put condition over here. And then let's say that we want to change our condition. So our condition will change to false after first going through the loop. And if I run it, I see that it's going to be run only once. So the way it works is that while loop first checks the condition and then executes the code. Do while loop, on the other hand, does the opposite. So to create a do while loop, we need to do something along those lines. So at this point in time, when we run this code, while will continue, it will change the condition to false, but do while first executes the code and then checks the condition that is there. So in this case, it will be do while loop. So this will mean that we will actually get it 2 times. So that's very important distinction that you need to make, is that while loop checks the condition in the beginning before running the code. Do while loop checks the condition after the loop has run through at least one time. So let's use a more clear example apart from just showcasing this. In our name checker, I want to force the user to input their name as long as they do not supply me with a name that is true. So what I can do is first have a Boolean condition that is going to be set to true. And we are going to name it should continue so that it's easier to understand. Okay, so let's print out our loop, should continue. Let's create first an instance of name checker, new name checker, and if name checker that check if name contains Y. And here we need to put also a scanner to get information from the user. Scanner sc equals new scanner system.in. If name checker, check if name contains Y, sc dot next line. So we pull information from the end user about the name. So if this is going to be true, then we're going to change our condition should continue to false so that it stops working. So this loop will force our end user to keep inputting their name as many times as it is required. So right now we are also put system.println, please input your name. So let's run the code. Please input your name, John, DevLaunch, Susie. So yeah, it doesn't work until I put a name that contains a Y, and then the program stops. So very, very important and very useful part of the loops. We can use conditions there with proper controlling of them. It makes our lives much easier. We can repeat the code as many times as possible. And for example, we can force the user to input the values as many times as it is necessary, because otherwise we'll run into issues where we would need to repeat the code. So actually, the way it works for the most part, even the program that I have right now to record this and to run the Java code is running in a loop. So this is the main loop of the program. And until I press the exit or press the X, then the code will run indefinitely. So this needs a proper stop. And this is actually based on a flag, or rather a Boolean condition, similar to what we have done here, of course, on a much, much bigger scale. With that being said, this is the last theoretical video in this segment. So what you will need to do right now is to go ahead, head on to the range of variables and the loops section, and afterwards you will get the tasks, and there are quite a lot of them this time, and they are quite complicated. So if you have any issues with them, then please feel free to reach out on the group or ask for help any other person in the group as well, because I'm sure that everybody else would surely help out, and if not, then I will of course try to help you out. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next videos.